June 21st, 2022. We are at the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. And if you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mrs. Rain, may I impose upon you to read the announcements?
We are looking for citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized Bylaw Review Committee. Volunteer applications may be found at the town website, www.hansen-ma.gov, or by calling the Selectmen's office at 781-293-2131. Upcoming meetings: Select Board, June 28th, 2022. Select Board, July 14th, 2022.
Okay, great. With that, we have got Mr. DeFreitas, our town planner, with us. And I think most of you have had an opportunity to meet Mr. DeFreitas. We're very fortunate to have him. He presented something to the planning board, and I know the Economic Development Committee. I'm not really sure who else, Tony.
Merquan Reuse Committee.
Okay, Merquan Reuse, yep. Tony was thinking about generally the needs that the town has for library, senior center, sports, and highway was really the original driver of the whole thing. And kind of coming in with fresh eyes, I think he had some thoughts that he wanted to share with us. I want to emphasize, nothing has been done to effectuate change and moving in the direction of what Tony's about to present. And that will, if the board kind of says, hey, yeah, I think we want to kind of move in that direction, then we'll end up having a hearing or a public forum at least, where various stakeholders can come and talk to us. I know it's already been presented to, like you said, the Merquan Reuse, the library folks are aware, the senior center folks are aware, and we're part of a conversation, and also the youth sports. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to have some concerns, you know, but for tonight, it's really just for Tony to kind of tell us what his vision is, and as I said, we'll have a follow-up meeting where we solicit comments and we solicit public opinion. So with that, Mr. DeFreitas, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So when I came on board to the town of Hanson back in October 2021, there was a lot of discussion regarding expansion of the library, or renovation and expansion of the library, what to do with the old Merquan School and the highway department. Their existing location and their existing buildings are quite aged, and the potential of them moving down to the Hawks Avenue area. So I took it upon myself to just sort of look at this area and try to determine what might be some of the best use for those three parts of Hanson: library, Merquan School, highway department. So what I have is a PowerPoint tonight, and I call it the Merquan Area Reuse Plan, and it involves the Merquan School, the Hanson Public Library, and the Hanson Highway Department. So the report that I prepared that you have a copy of is, as it states, this report and attached diagrams and drawings attempt to create a starting point of conversation on how to solve the needs of the Highway Department and Public Library, and to determine a use for the former Merquan Elementary site. The attached plans attempt to depict what can be accomplished with proper planning techniques to best serve the residents of Hanson and minimize costs. The proposed improvements to the sites would improve services and create spaces for residents to enjoy in a safe environment. So the first one we'll talk about is the Merquan School site at 60 School Street. This site is a 17-acre parcel of land that is comprised of open fields and woods. The site contains, as everyone knows, the former Merquan Elementary School, which has been closed since, I believe, 2018. The school has related parking areas and an existing playground located behind the school. The school is a brick-and-mortar building constructed in 1968 with related parking along School Street and the southern side of the building. Second site that we're going to discuss is the Hanson Public Library and Senior Center located at 132 Merquan Street. This is a 3.3 acre site located on the southerly side of Merquan Street at the intersection with School Street. The library and senior center share a building space of approximately 11,177 square feet, with the library utilizing 8,195 square feet of area. The building is a single-story wood frame constructed in 1990 and covers approximately 2/3 of the site, along with related parking and green space. And the last site we'll be talking about is the Hanson Highway Department site, which is located at 797 Indian Head Street. This highway department is located on a 6.1 acre parcel located on the westerly side of Indian Head Street, also known as Route 58, and is centrally located within town limits. The site is comprised of multiple buildings, with the main structure being constructed in 1964, and which houses offices, garages, and storage buildings for salt and sand. This site also shares its land with 3 youth baseball fields, a skate park, and a basketball court. So if you look at the screen, you'll see an overview, all of them together, with the library being at the top, and the Merquan School and the Highway Department. And as you can see, the Highway Department has the ball fields, basketball court, and a skate park located on it. So what I was trying to figure out is, well, the Highway Department needs a new building. Library's looking to expand, and Merquan School, we're not really sure what we want to do with it. There had been studies at looking at Merquan schools to potentially making it a over 55 building, knocking it down, selling the property. And again, these are 3 pieces of land that the town controls. You own them. And Merquan School is 17 acres of land. You have this open area, but this extends quite a ways back into the woods. So based on that, I said, well, what could we do here? So for the Merquan School, what I was proposing, so there was a feasibility study prepared by the Mass School Building Authority, and to quote, they said, the Merquan Elementary School building is a 2-story structure with a gross area of approximately 74,660 square feet. The main common spaces are on a single level connected by mid-story to 2-story classroom wing. Original construction was June 1966. The dedication was in 1968. And a 2-story addition was added in 1989. It says, while the building has been well maintained, much of the materials and finishes are original to the building and are nearing the end of their serviceable life. So what I felt that might want to be one of the best uses for this is to raise the existing building, get rid of it completely. And what would be constructed there would be something working title, Merquan Youth Athletic Complex, or other potentials, the Ruth Masters Memorial Fields, or Buteri Athletic Complex. Again, all working titles. And I should have stated this at the beginning. What I'm going to show you is step 1 of 100. This is just to talk about it. This is just to get ideas to show, and to show you what the potential are, what the potential is, what could be done, and then go from there. So, getting rid of the Merquan School, we could take the 3 fields that are over on the Highway Department site and construct them here. We could also put up a new basketball court, a 6,000 square foot skate park, soccer field or practice football field, along with what I've shown, and I'll show, it'll be in the next slide, is a 28 by 40 building which would house concessions, public restrooms, etc. This site will have the ability to have 93 parking spaces, and additional parking will be provided. We can provide overflow parking near the library. So that being said, this is what I had come up with. And let me just see if I can blow this up here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's going to happen to the little playground?
The little playground would be moved and incorporated, correct.
Yeah.
So what you see is 3 baseball fields. And just as across the street, one could have lights for night games. And then there's a skate park, 6,000 square foot skate park, basketball court, the playground that was out back would be moved up to the front, closer to the street, and then a concession stand with bathrooms and such. So these 3 fields fit generally in the open area that is on the Merquan site right now. And then here you could have a future soccer, football practice field with additional parking, which would come off of, from behind the library. And that parking could also act as overflow parking for the library if they had a large event. So this is a site you have that's 17 acres, and that's what you can fit on it, with the ability to expand for additional fields if the town so chose to and had the money. Whether it's a baseball field or another soccer field or a football field, there's more room to do more athletic fields.
Or I'm sorry, Tony, or a softball field,
Or a softball field, yeah,
girls.
sure. There's plenty, there's 17 acres of land there,
Mhm.
and the town owns it. So now with all brand-new fields, and I think most kids would like brand-new fields, you have brand-new fields, this becomes a sports complex. This is something that the town could probably use and generate some revenue from. So it's, you know, you get rid of the building and you have all of this to work with. So if you take Merquan and you knock it down and you sell the land, it's a one-time deal. You'll get the money once, and you'll probably get spent, and then you'll have nothing. You have to find something else. So this is something that could potentially generate revenue for the town.
And just to be clear, Tony, we've gotten very strong feedback that people do not want us to sell that piece of property. And, you know, I think we all recognize it's, location, it's such a key location because it's near the library and the senior center, and it's near the school. And like you said, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once you sell it, you've sold it, you lose control over it. So we've gotten very, very strong feedback on that.
Right, and to use the building, to convert it, say, to housing, it's, as there was said in that report, the building's pretty much reached its limit.
And we tried, we really did, in all honesty, we went to real estate brokers, we could not get anybody to take that up. The rehab of that would have been so costly, so. But Tony, I did have one question, 93 parking spots, I mean, this is definitely not my area of strength, but it just, at first blush, I'm thinking, well, geez Louise, if, there's people in each one of those fields and like, you know, like on a Saturday, say, and then you've got people at the library and people doing all kinds of stuff. Is there anywhere in the footprint to expand parking if we determine that we needed more parking?
Yes, we have 17 acres of land to work with. There's 93 spaces just down here, and there's an additional 32 up top.
And how much does this plan take up of that 17 acres?
I couldn't give you that number, I'd have to get back to you on that. I could give you just an estimate, but,
Is that the wood line right there?
yes,
That
so what
line
you're
represents,
seeing.
so you got all that to move
Right,
into?
so what you're seeing is this is the woods line,
Yeah,
okay? And this dashed line here represents the school.
the old building,
footprint
yeah.
of the school.
Yeah.
So
could
you have
go out
plenty,
there,
you have
yes.
plenty of room to expand depending on, when you're sizing up, when you're establishing parking, you're gonna look at, okay, it's an athletic field, and then you're gonna look at a manual and say, okay, for athletic fields, they're gonna anticipate X amount of parking. Just like, you have in the zoning bylaw. You have a retail space, you're gonna expect this many parking spaces. So this is just, again, step 1 of 100.
Yeah.
To show that what is potential. And then, if the town decides to move forward, then you start to get down to the nuts and bolts of design and creating how many spaces. But there is room to expand for more parking. If that,
And Tony, have you passed this by Frank, the conservation agent? Have we had any kind of conversation? I know it's a bit before you hit the wetlands, but I'm just curious, you know.
just going by Mass GIS at
Yeah.
this point, there's no wetlands shown on the Mass GIS.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that there isn't a potential for having some resource area in here. But currently, the Mass GIS does not show any resource area on this property. Obviously, that's why this is what you see is within the current fields,
Yeah.
the open area. Once before you get into the woods, that would be something that would be established. And even prior, even for just this work, have a botanist to take a look and see what, if any, resource areas exist.
All right, thank you. Did anybody have any questions?
Tony, before you go to the next slide, can you just, is it possible to move that down a bit? So I can just take a look at the top? So,
Yeah.
the soccer field, library overflow parking, we could have, and I know this is step 1 of 100, but maybe step 53 is the parking, because if you have a tournament here and the library has something scheduled, you know, there could definitely be a conflict with parking.
Yep, and then when we would work that through the design process.
Okay.
So this is, if everyone decides that, yeah, we want to move forward with this, and then we'd work with the library and figure out, okay, what type of events would they have, and so forth and so on. So it's a process. And those are things that would come in as stakeholders got together to formulate, let's say, lists, what we need, what you need, how can we make it all work?
And this is what Laura was talking about exactly next week, or last week, there has to be communications between all these groups. So if the library was planning something, they'd want to touch base with Parks and Fields to make sure, you know, there wasn't something going on. So I get that. I noticed that the wooded line stops almost halfway up between the football or soccer field.
Right.
What
So
does that mean?
So, what you see is that note, okay? The property line is existing building location information taken from available plans and deeds. So, this is not based on an instrument survey. So, all that type of information is if the town decides to move forward and hire a consultant who would then put all that down, do all the survey work, put all that down on the plan, and show where's the edge of the woods today.
Would it be surmised, though, that the woods kind of cut through the corner of the proposed soccer field? Is that it kind of continues up that line?
It's possible. It's just, this is based on the existing plans and, you
Yeah.
know, the maps that were available.
That's
The
probably
reason that I
case,
asked that,
actually, I
Tony, if
think.
you don't mind,
Yeah.
just to move it down again.
We're talking about the
Right
football
about
field here, so
here,
this
in
is,
here,
all
there
this
are
would have to
two
be
pipes
checked
coming
out.
out of the ground. I saw them today, I don't know what they are, but I'm sure you.
There's an existing leaching area for the septic system that was for the school.
Yeah,
Now, that
Football
may,
fields here.
quotation,
All this would have to go.
be reused, may not, because it may be too big. You know, if you have the concession stand, you know, it'll be based on the code. It might be reused, it might not, based on the condition. So, that's something that, again, as you get, once you get into it, those are all the things that'll start to be addressed.
Okay.
And-
And so my last question on this slide, the senior center,
yes.
with their addition would be 2,000 square feet?
That's just for discussion purposes. So I'm gonna move to the next slide, which will
Oh.
get to address.
Yeah,
all.
just so you know, Jim, Tony has spoken to, Mary and to Karen Stolfer, and to Corinne, because she's the, you know, the president of the board of the library trustees, to kind of, even though that's not necessarily in this phase, it's probably like 5 phases from here, but just, if we're gonna do it, we gotta think holistically about everything.
And
Yeah, what I tried to do was basically listen to what everyone was saying and look at all the paperwork that had been done, such as at the time the Merquan report, scanned through that, the report that was done for the library, read that, and then reached out to Karen, had a meeting with her probably within a couple of weeks after I started, to just kind of get an idea of what they were hoping to do. So, the next site would be the Hanson Public Library. So a study of the public library has determined that the building in its current configuration is undersized for the needs of the residents of Hanson. A study prepared for the library in 2019 stated, to meet the needs of the community, consideration should be given to significantly renovated or new facility of just under 16,000 square feet. The current location of the library works well and offers ample room for expansion or for a new structure in the same area. Whether a renovation or a new building, the library should be designed to be a vibrant and vital community center in a community with few options for residents to gather. So that was in their actual report. So the expansion of the library and the senior center on their current site is possible with the reconfiguration of an existing property line that's shared between the Merquan School and the library site. The proposed addition to both the library and the senior center could be accomplished simultaneously and to allow for both to remain open during construction. A new library on the Merquan site would require extensive site grading to provide positive stormwater runoff and treatment, along with construction of new parking areas and potentially a new soil absorption system. So the next slide is what you saw on the previous plan, just in a larger scale. So this just shows an addition of 8,500 square feet, which would then double the footprint of the existing library. The 2,000 square feet would double the size of the senior center. Again, just working number. You know, it could be 3,000 square feet for the senior center, or 4,000. It all comes down to what type of monies are available or that they could receive to expand. The library site, which was done in 1990, what you see today is actually not how it was designed. The parking area was actually, the roadway was intended to go around the entire building. So there was additional parking in here and a drainage area up in this area. So that was never done in the final construction of the library. So this shows, you know, again, an addition, a single-story addition, just to double their size and to double the size of the senior center. Any questions there?
No, but Tony, to your point of the original plan for the library, one of the things that we had talked about is people get jammed up in that library senior parking lot, and especially for the seniors, it's a tight little area there to turn around. So this might be an opportunity to rethink and maybe go with what that original plan was, if the footprint permits it.
Yeah, I have it here on my computer at the end. I can show you what it was supposed to be. So the next one becomes the highway department. So the current highway department site, centrally located approximately 2 miles from all town borders. The Hawks Avenue site, which has been discussed, is in the southeast corner of the town, which would double the distance from the northern side of town and require additional time for highway department vehicles. A plan which was done for the town of Hanson regarding Hawks Ave showed a 8,400 square foot road salt storage building and 7 20 by 20 bulk storage bins and a fuel island. The Hawks Ave site is located in a wildlife and conservation area and is adjacent to an area designated by the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. The storage or release of these materials, the salt, could cause environmental damage to the area. So the next plan that I'm going to show you is a highway department redevelopment. So maintaining the existing location and expanding the site to accommodate new office and garage space would be most feasible. The site would be redeveloped to provide for a single entrance to the highway department complex. The single entrance would provide for safer traffic entrance and egress of highway department vehicles onto Route 58. A new 50 by 200 building could be constructed near the street with related parking for staff and visitors. The new 10,000 square foot building would house offices and provide for garage storage space. A second 50 by 200 building could be constructed at the same time or in the future and would be used for equipment storage. Additionally, a new 60 by 140 salt shed, which is the same size as what was proposed down on Hawks Ave, could be constructed along with the 20 by 20 storage bins. The existing buildings would remain open throughout the construction process, and then could either be renovated or raised to create green space or material storage. The remaining building, which is the former police station, which is out front, could be renovated, because right now it's used by the folks that run the ball fields, could be renovated and become new office space. In essence, we'll call it an annex of the town hall for someone like our IT department director. He has no office space in this town hall, and space in town hall is at a premium, so that's something that could be looked at to create space for him. So let me just, okay, so this would be the highway department site. So right now, this is the former police station. This is an existing building where the highway department is. That's their building. Those two outlines up there are the existing salt shed and I think some storage. They come in close to the police station. And if you know, coming from town hall, there's a bit of a curve there in traffic. So what this would do is it would push the opening more to the center of the site, which would give them a lot better sight distance along that curve. Create one opening, one driveway. And then you have one building there that's 50 by 200, which you could have as the offices. And the way that the grading is, it's high at the road, and then, as you know, it kind of drops down. So you have the potential for storage underneath, depending on how you design the building. You have the fuel island, which was also shown on the Hawks Ave site plan. There was a 23 by 50 knockdown pad, which is shown on the Hawks Ave site plan, which you see here. The bulk storage and a new salt shed, which is the same size as the one that's proposed on Hawks Ave. There's also potential for a 50 by 200 second building, depending on, monies and so forth. That building could be used for highway department, because if there's any department in Hanson that is going to need to expand, it's highway department. As you know, Hanson has 70 private ways. And that's a large issue in town, with folks living on those private ways who would like to see those become public ways. Now, not every private way in town would become a public way due to, you might have roads that are like 15 feet wide in the dirt, and they don't have any drainage. But we'll call it the low-hanging fruit, where you have roads that are paved, that were part of the subdivision process, that have drainage, et cetera, et cetera. As you start bringing these on, and the maintenance that's gonna be required, this is one department that's, in the future, gonna have to expand. Equipment-wise, personnel-wise, because there's just a lot of maintenance that they're gonna have to be doing. So they'll need the room. So this would keep them centrally located, to be able to access, everywhere in town. And then they could stay in their buildings while they were being constructed. So the fields obviously would move to Merquan. So you have this large open area, we'll call it, where that was the fields, and that could be turned into some new buildings. And then once those buildings are constructed, the highway department can move into them and either keep those existing buildings or knock them down. Or if you renovate them, maybe the town could lease them. Potential revenue. And again, the police station out front, now the town takes back, and we turn into an annex of the town hall, and maybe the IT director or the facilities manager, or both of them, go in that building. So, again, this is a thought. This is what it would look like as you get into it. It would change as the needs and what we determine, as far as grading and so forth and so on. But it's just to give you an idea again of what is potentially there, and this is land you already own.
Yeah, and so this is a good place to start a discussion and kind of get everybody's views at a future meeting. Mrs. Rain is going to be heading up our resuscitated highway building committee. And so we've got to put a bow on that study, whether or not light control is going to be a feasible location. But as Mr. Dyer used to remind us, that plan that they came up with for Hawks Ave It's not completed yet, but when it is, it's in essence a needs assessment. So, it won't be money that we've just thrown away. It will be money if we put it at the Merquan, at this site, then we know what the needs are for the highway department. We can, move forward. If we end up using the Hawks Avenue, then we will move forward. And then the second piece of it is regardless of what we end up doing on that property, we have exhausted, the potential for housing at the Merquan, and we know it needs to be torn down. So whether it's sports fields or the library or whatever, but, plug in whatever your municipal need is, we know that in order to do anything there, we've got to tear down Merquan. So, did you guys have any questions? Yes, Ms. Green?
Madam Chair.
You answered them.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So,
Lisa does.
Lisa does.
Madam Chair. Tony, could you please just remind everybody the distance from where Highway is now to all points in town to where they would be if they moved to Hawks Ave to all points in town?
yeah, and I'll, once I get through this, I'll also show you a diagram. Where highway sits now, it's approximately 2 miles to anywhere in town. Except the most extreme southern part of town. It's maybe 2.5 miles. But everywhere else, it's pretty much 2 miles.
How about Perry Ave?
That would be one of the extremes.
That might be one of the extremes.
You're like, right.
So,
Just wanted to make sure.
So in conclusion, maintaining the existing locations of the highway department, the library senior center would provide the following: the elimination of the acquisition of new property, the allowance for continuing centralized access within the town, the creation of new athletic fields needed for youth sports, the reduction of traffic and pedestrian hazards associated with the access and egress points to the field's current location on Route 58, the allowance for the library, senior center, and highway department to remain open while construction activities occur, the ability for the creation of office space for the IT department or some other department at the former police station, the reduction of construction costs and environmental impacts, and the ability to create an alternative, more viable use for the Hawks Ave site. Now, this is the last slide, and costs. So improvements to School Street could potentially be completed through the Complete Streets program. A portion of the construction costs for the athletic fields could potentially be completed through the community preservation funding. And then we could also investigate any potential grants for costs. So let me.
Well, and I think the Board of Library Trustees told us that whatever improvements they do at the library are eligible for 50%. So, that's nothing to, sneer at.
So the current, let's see if it'll come up. So that's the current location in yellow there in the center of that circle. That's 2 miles. That's the coverage of the existing highway department. So now, if you move them to Hawks Ave, so you can see the coverage, that would be Hawks Ave. So that entire northern part of the town, it would be that much longer for them to get up there to salt, sand, return back to Hawks Ave, return back to that. So you have that, fuel costs, et cetera, et cetera. And now, let me just call up.
You also have the railroad, which is a little bit inconvenient. So the existing location is practically the epicenter of,
Hanson.
yeah.
Yeah, almost as if it was planned that way.
It is almost just a plan that way.
Let me just take one other. Come on. Hold on 1 second.
Tony, do you need me to fill some time?
No,
Because honestly.
Oh, I was afraid you were gonna get up and start
I'm
pointing
sorry.
up there.
Whatever you show us, that last slide compared to where it is now is a major selling point. Because no matter what you do, you can't get more
visual in that.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is the plan that was done in 1990 for the library. So you can see that what you have today is not exactly what was proposed. As far as parking and, a loop road. So that's what it was supposed to be.
That would be awesome to have it that way.
So that concludes my presentation, on this. If,
Okay.
gladly answer any questions that you might have.
Did you guys have any questions? Mr. Hickey?
Tony, on the, one of the slides you showed, for the highway department, you would move the, fuel system area from where it is now over to the other side, where the fuel pumps were.
Okay, yeah.
But that would be part of.
Yes. yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And with the old police station, and I'm not sure if you said this at the beginning with that first slide, all the sports teams use that building now. Where would they go? Unless they were.
So as part of Merquan, what would happen is there'd be a new building put up. And it would, I show a 28 by 40. You could do a 30 by 6, it all depends on money, right? But that would be their new headquarters.
Okay.
So there would be concession stands in that building, you could have office space, public restrooms, storage, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where they would move to. So they'd go from the police station there, so now they're right at the fields, and they, you know, that's center of operations.
And the only other thing, Tony, that I would just like to mention, because, you know, you said this is step 1 of 100. We're doing other things in town. You know, would it be possible to have a softball field at this complex?
Well, you have 3 baseball fields across the street. You can build either 3 new baseball fields, or you could do 2 baseball fields and a softball field. So, you know, or you could do 3 baseball. It all depends on, I guess it all comes down to money. You know, what is available to build, and, you know.
I just want to make sure that any future construction or housing projects, or maybe a softball field that we have now in town, that the sports wouldn't lose that, you know, 10 or 15 years down the road.
Right, yeah. You have, like, again, there's 17 acres there to use, and so there's a lot of potential for expansion. But I know which ball field you're talking about, and, you know, so if that one would get incorporated to anything, that would potentially be improved down in that part of town, too.
Oh, so that would stay?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
You know,
Just
Where
want,
is it?
we had this discussion, and, you know.
Probably by the LZ Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, you could change the name of the parking lot if you want to, but that softball field's gotta stay for the girls, because, you know,
yeah,
that's all.
no,
they have.
I recognize that, you know, when I'm doing these things, you know, so, and for the newer members I worked in the private sector for 30 years, in the civil engineering and land surveying field, so, if I was in the private sector, I'd love to be able to do the design work on these sites. It'd be a challenge that I would thoroughly enjoy doing that, you know, so. And that's my presentation.
Yeah,
for the evening.
and, something to keep in mind, you did say community preservation money could be used, and they have accrued a pretty good chunk of change there. But the beauty of community preservation is that you can also bond against it. So if the amount of this build for those sports fields ends up being more than what we actually have in the bank, we can go to town meeting and we can say, how bullish do you feel about this? If you feel really bullish about it, we're not gonna have to raise your taxes to do this. We're gonna have to continuously keep taking the, community preservation, amount, but we can bond against future revenue. So I think we could do it with very little cost out of pocket. We cannot, however, do the or the concession stand with CPC funds. So,
Well, we'd have to examine other avenues to
Yep.
try and, you know, raise money
yep.
to do that.
But the playground we could do with it, skateboard park and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, the playground that's there, if the equipment's in good shape, I mean, it could just be reused. you
Yep.
know, So, and the fields that are across the way, I know there's one, Buteri Field, which has some significance in town. It would just be, it'd be being moved, you know? It wouldn't be being lost, it'd be moved. It's
Right,
just
we
be-
could rededicate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
again, you know, the fields, you know, I know that Ruth Masters is a memorial on the Merquan site, you know, that could be incorporated as well on that site, you know, so.
I just got a quick question.
Yes.
Well, comment first, too. Amazing job.
Yes.
I don't know how much work went into this, but absolutely fantastic to you and anybody else that did it, because trying to fit those puzzle pieces together that's amazing. Just a quick question, might not even be related to you, but, speaking of bonds, I mean, do we have anything that's coming out of being bonded so that we can try and stretch our
I just had
dollar?
that conversation with Mr.,
Okay.
with Todd. I just had that conversation on Friday, and I said, would it be possible for you to get this board?
Yeah,
And
list.
really, I was thinking because of the highway building
Right.
stuff, he said he would get something to us within the next couple of weeks, so we can see what's coming off of the rolls and
Yeah.
know what we've got.
Pretty good tactic, I'm sure you know this, but a pretty good tactic is you want to line up things that are coming off of bonding, so you can put it back in bonding, so that way, it limits the amount of tax that, it actually limits, it stretches the dollar even further if we can, because we already know it's stretched. So, I know these are just ideas, and there's a long way to go, but I didn't know if you happen to know that, but thank you.
So we should have that, like I said, he said within the next couple of weeks.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you again. This is a lot of work. I'm just thinking, what are we losing at the existing site near the highway, area when we move over? I see, is the skate park moving over and
Yes.
basketball fields?
Yes,
They're both-
everything that's on the existing highway department site.
So we're not
would necessarily
losing-
would move over to the new Merquan site, so just everything gets shifted to that spot. One thing that helps, Route 58 is a busy road, as you know, there's been improvements with crosswalks there, but School Street is a much quieter street, less traffic, safer street for pedestrians and vehicles, versus 58. So everything that was there would just move over to the Merquan site.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I mean,
Well done, great
yeah,
job.
any questions?
No, my only
Yeah.
comment is, I think that that's totally logical to do it all right there.
I mean, it's almost like, we needed somebody to come from the outside and just take a fresh look at it and say, this makes perfect sense, why don't we just do this?
Well, for me, it does, in my head. Now, there's 10,000 residents in Hanson. They may not agree, but in my head as a designer, looking at what your needs are, this is what I did in the private sector. If you came to me and said, I have a piece of property, and now I want to maximize it, or have needs, how do I do that? That's what I did. So, those plans that you see there, I actually did them. I drew those up. So, because that's what I did in the private sector.
It's great, and so I think before we can move forward that, we need to tear down Merquan and we need to put a bow on the highway and figure out, is it gonna go at Hawks Ave or not? And then I think we start, maybe even in parallel, we could be having conversations about this, with people and getting opinions.
Yeah,
So-
because one of the first things is obviously Merquan School has to go away. Then I think the second phase would be moving the ball fields, if you're gonna leave highway there and let them expand on the existing site, is getting the ball fields constructed. So then once they're done, at the same time, library could be doing their thing, because if they're on grant monies, then they could be doing their own thing, and then the highway would probably be the last, step to get constructed.
Yep. Well, you hit it out of the ballpark, no pun
Thank you.
intended. Thank you so much. And I think we're going to be hearing perhaps from you in one of our future meetings about town-owned properties, I think.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that'll be one of the next.
Okay, thanks. That brings us to Selectmen Liaison assignments. We've been very spotty as a board about this historically, but last week, when we met, we talked about opening up lines of communication, and trying to share that information with each other and with the other boards and committees. Everybody sort of gets in their little swim lane, and we're not sharing information, and there's redundancy, and we're stepping on people's toes, and they're stepping on our toes. So, I kind of did a little looking around, and we had talked about having liaisons, and I've looked around at a lot of the towns around us, and they all have liaisons to nearly every committee and department, not just departments. So I know it sounds like it potentially could be a lot of work, but I also, last week, Mr. Weeks, you mentioned, well, gee, I think we need to be really clear about what a liaison does, just so we're not, you know, we're not overstepping boundaries. And essentially, Lisa, I don't know if Lucia put this in our packet or not, I didn't see it, but I can paraphrase. I sent around to all of you guys the liaison job description, a proposed one, which I kind of plagiarized from various places and cobbled it together. But essentially, it's like, if I'm a liaison to, say, police, I'm not telling Chief Mix how to do his job. I'm not doing anything as a selectman individually. I'm just a point person. If Chief Mix wants to bounce something by us for a budget, he'd come to the liaison. If he's having some kind of issue with some, you know, something at the town hall, whatever, he'd come to us. If he wants us to know about something, he can feed it through the liaison, or of course, he can always come to the meeting. But what we're not doing is we're not unilaterally becoming the voice of the selectmen with that department or committee. We need to always be bringing it back to the rest of the
one-way.
board so that we're all acting together on the actions. It's really just a way to open up the lines of communication. And the thing is, if it doesn't work, if it's a failed experiment, then we just come back together and we say, that was a failed experiment. It did not work. We have not opened up the lines of communication. It's frustrating. It's too much work. I don't know, fill in the complaint, whatever that might be. But I thought, what do we get to lose? So I don't know if people gave thought to, you know, the liaison, departments. I know you enjoy senior. I assume you're gonna wanna continue to do that
Yeah,
one.
that'd be great.
And that seems to be effective. And I sort of was thinking, well, geez, if you're doing the highway,
I might as well do the highway.
but I don't wanna be presumptuous and say that, but I was
Makes
kinda
sense.
thinking, you
All
know,
about logic.
you know, so, and I don't know if there are other ones that people feel like a particular yearning to, you know, for, like, again, you're on conservation, Ed, so it'd be kind of
Conservation
ridiculous
already,
for us
yeah.
to,
Put
like,
somebody
appoint
else
to
on, yeah.
conservation, yeah. So, so if we kind of work through that, and I think you had volunteered for Parks and Fields, so it didn't really leave a lot that we hadn't already discussed. And there may be some that we need to add, but I kind of went through and took a rough pass. So, do I have anybody who would like to be the liaison for police?
I wouldn't mind doing that.
You wouldn't mind doing that? Okay. All right. Anybody else, or?
Do we need more than one?
Well, no, I
Oh,
just
no.
want to make sure I'm not
Yeah,
just being
I don't want- if
presumptuous.
somebody else
Okay,
wants it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
yeah. Anybody for fire?
I'll do fire.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'll do whatever.
Okay. And Ann, we've got you on highway.
Yep.
FinCom, I'm sure this will be very popular.
I can do it.
You're volunteering to do that? That's amazing.
Whatever the short straws are, I don't
Okay,
mind
well,
doing
that
it.
is,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
honestly don't mind.
no disrespect to Finance Committee, but I think
Yeah,
that,
I,
okay.
I'm interested in it.
All right, great, that's awesome. Library, I thought I would do library,
Okay.
and you're doing, senior center, right? All right, and, community preservation. I would actually love to be the liaison to that one. I was on that committee, it was one of my favorite things I ever
Well,
did.
then you should be on it.
Okay, thanks, I'm glad nobody's fighting me on that one. Planning board,
If nobody else does, I'll grab it.
okay, or Joe, I know you were on planning, is that weird? I don't know, you
Do you
know.
want to be,
It
do
honestly
you
doesn't
want to
matter
be?
I truly mean it, it doesn't matter to me. If you want to volunteer to do extra work,
Okay,
fine by me.
all right, Ed, that sounds good. Board of Appeals,
I'll do it.
okay. Conservation, like I said, we already did that one.
Yeah.
Board of Health. Anybody want to do that one?
If no one raises their hand, I'll do it. Whatever people don't want to, if there's no hand
Right.
raised, I'll jump in.
Parks and Fields is Jim, and, I will gladly do Recreation Commission, because I only took one other one. Does everybody feel comfortable with those? Lisa, I took notes, so if, I'm not
I've got them
expecting you to
all.
be.
You did
Is that
three,
relatively
just to say
even?
it. You did three. You said library,
Oh,
community
yeah, you're right.
preservation,
Seems
Yep,
and recreation.
Yep, okay. Yeah, you're right, Ann, thanks.
When I'm not president of the Bee Club anymore, I'll take on more.
Well, honestly, you and Ed have already taken on quite a bit for new members, between the committees and now the liaison, so, yeah.
Someone have too many?
No,
Okay.
no, I think it's pretty evenly spread unless somebody feels overly burdened.
Madam Chair, can I just review who I
Yes,
have?
please.
To make sure
Yep.
we're on the same page? Okay, so for police, we have Ann.
Yep,
Fire, we have Ed.
yep,
Highway, Ann.
yep,
FinCom is Joe.
yep,
Library, yourself.
yep,
Parks and Fields, Jim.
yep,
Senior Center, Jim.
yep,
Community Preservation, yourself.
yep,
Planning Board, Ed.
yep,
Board of Appeals, Jim.
yep,
Conservation Commission, Ed.
mm-hmm,
Board of Health, Joe.
yep,
Recreation, yourself.
yes,
All right.
great. All right, that's great.
That list, created.
My
Right.
only concern being if boards meet at the same time, we might need to
Oh, I'm sorry,
juggle that.
thank you, Ed. You are not expected to attend every one of the meetings by
Right.
any stretch of the, in fact, I honestly would say
Hope we
you
don't,
probably
yeah.
don't want, because what we don't want is for people to feel like, oh, I've got now like an additional
extra,
member
yeah.
of the committee. We don't want to be stopping whatever that organic process is that the committees are already doing with whoever they've already got on their committee and
Right.
boards. That's not what this is about. I mean, if you want to pop in, or if you want to listen, or whatever, but I definitely don't want to give a mixed message, like, for instance, like recreation. I'm not planning on attending all of their meetings. If there's something in particular that they think like, I don't know, say they're making a presentation about their financials, and they think that I should go, then I would go, but I definitely, we are not an additional member to any of these boards or committees.
Right.
And we're definitely not, like, suddenly joining the police force or the fire. Does that help, Ed?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
because, yeah, definitely. So I would definitely encourage you guys to read that the job description for the liaison, and it's kind of laid out in there. Okay, great. Mr. Weeks, did you have a motion that you wanted to make?
Yes, so we have vote to authorize the use of new election equipment?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Yep.
So I move pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Section 34, that the Hanson Select Board vote to approve the use of poll pads as new election equipment to be used by the town of Hanson starting at the September 2022 state primary.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and as you guys will recall, at the town meeting, we voted on, to fund this, and it'll just kind of bring us into, I'd say, the 21st century, but probably not more the 20th century. So with that, I will entertain a motion. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. All right, great. And Mr. Hickey, we received Mr. Hickey's resignation from the Drainage Committee. So I will entertain a motion to recognize his resignation.
With regret.
Thank you.
Second? Okay, and all in favor of accepting his resignation? Okay, and Ms. Green, moving on to discuss town insurance coverages and vote to approve change in insurance agent.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, if you remember during last week's town administrator report, I had mentioned that I have been, I was looking at quotes from insurance agents, 2 different agents. Now, just to be clear, insurance is exempt from a 30B procurement. It's not required that we go out to bid. However, under best practices, it is good to keep up and solicit quotes to make sure we are getting the best bang for our dollars, or, the taxpayer dollars. I had presented some figures that were submitted to us from Maya for insurance, and I did receive the insurance quote from our current provider, who we go through now, which you do have a packet that includes what their figure is for insurance for 2022. And actually, it would be on the next page. I did not have an opportunity to put it into the graph I put together, but the sheet is there. And you'll see for 2022, their insurance premium for liability coverage, workers' comp, property and casualty is $270,195. If you will recall, the quote that Maya had given us was $212,830. And if we pay in full by August 1st, we get an additional 2.5% discount off of that pricing. So it brings it down to around 207, and additional monies, I don't have the exact figure. But I think you'll see that there is a substantial difference in the premiums. All of they're comparable as far as our deductibles, minimum coverage. There's not much differences. There are a few outstanding liabilities, which would be the 252 High Street, which is the vacant building on High Street, and the Merquan vacant building, because those were covered under separate policies and on separate dates, so they are not up for renewal right now. But I think you'll see that the difference in the insurance costs are substantial. Maya also is, they cater to municipalities in ways that they offer grants. They offer free training in all different areas, including safety, OSHA training, areas like that. And once folks participate in those trainings, you get credits, which you can apply towards your premiums, which you can apply towards grants. Their grants, they offer a variety of different grants as far as tools that you can use towards building maintenance, like a device that you can use to check for leaks of air in the wintertime. I forget the name of that particular tool, but you can use them to find cold air that's infiltrating through windows and walls to see where your leaks are, just many things like that. Whereas the current company is locally owned and they don't offer benefits of those types. So we are coming up to the end of this fiscal year, so it's time to look at these because they're up for renewal, and we would want to make a decision as soon as possible to get everything in the works to get these renewals up and ready for submission.
So, did anybody have any questions for Ms. Green?
You mentioned the 2.5% discount if paid in full by August 1st. When do we normally pay? Is that out of the question to pay by August 1st?
No, it's not. With the other company, they would expect as well full payment for the premiums. They don't offer an additional discount for payment. Maya is just giving us by August 1st, which gives us 30 days to get everything. I've already spoken with our town accountant about that. He's no problem with that. And actually, the 2.5% discount would bring that down to $207,509.25, would be our insurance premiums.
Okay, and you said that Todd said that it's
I've spoken,
already budgeted.
yes, our town accountant, and he sees no problem with paying that in full to recognize that discount.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
The I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Hill.
I'm just trying to figure the numbers here.
Yep.
The 74, or the 79,000, or 80,000 basically, discount, is that, I see there's the Merquan premium for 2023. So if we were to stay where we are, it isn't a total savings of 80,000, unless I'm doing the math incorrectly.
Yeah, no, it came out, well, with today, with the rates that I got today, because these were just rates that I was going by from last year.
Right.
With our current provider, so they gave us our rate today. So it comes out a little bit less. But what's not included in the rate they gave us today was the $38,000 in insurance for the Merquan Elementary School. So that
That's
is
coming
not
out.
included. Right. That, I did include that because we had that figure at the time.
Right.
But their main figure for the premium came out a little bit lower. So it's a little bit less of a savings, but still substantial.
Right.
212 is still substantial from 270 for our liability, workers' comp and casualty insurance.
Okay. If there...
Just one quick question.
Yeah, sure, Ms. Wicks.
Do you happen to know, did the insurance increase, is it occurring just because of just regular inflation payment expectations, or is it because we use insurance more often? Was there a higher usage of insurance and causing the inflation?
No, there was not a higher insurance. It's just what the cost of the premiums have gone up.
So it's not because we have more people just using insurance, it's because of just natural increase?
Just
Okay.
seeing, right, the increases, yes.
Okay.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the change in insurance agents from, Hannon Murphy, I believe?
Hannon Murphy,
Yep.
yes.
To Maya? Maya,
So moved.
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Madam Chair, if I may, who made that second?
Me.
Joe, okay, thank you. Sometimes you say it so fast.
Could I interrupt you for 1 second? We have a appeals board meeting upstairs,
Okay,
and we have 2 members that are scheduled for reappointments, so it's kind of throwing a curveball into who should be sitting on the hearings that we have, because we have a brand new one opening up tonight.
okay.
So it's really putting a curveball into that, so I didn't know
Well,
if
so.
we should just stay and hold off the meeting until after you.
Well, no, I mean, if you've got a hearing, we don't want to hold anybody up from going to a hearing. I had Ms. Green reach out to the investigator. The investigation will not be completed until mid to late July. So the board, and this is the first that you guys are hearing of this, there was a whole long reason, he's got to be in court, he has personal, I don't even know. So he recommended, that we either not appoint, which obviously we can't do, because then you guys are gonna run the risk of having a quorum, or that we do a abbreviated appointment, so not for the full term. But it's really up to the board. So what we've got is, we have an investigation that's ongoing, that, honestly, I'm not even gonna say that it's the middle to end of July, because this goalpost has been moved so many times.
Which investigation is it?
This is the ZBA investigation that we were told that we had a citizen's petition at town meeting to do. So it's up to the board on whether we simply reappoint people, knowing that there's the investigation and that the results are not in yet, and that I'm not opining whether there is anything or not anything. I don't know. I haven't seen any results, so but I appreciate where these guys are coming from. They have to have people to do this job. And just so you guys know, it isn't the type of thing that you can ignore. There are very tight timing constraints on hearings and by what time you need to reply and on all that stuff. And if you do not follow those requirements, then it de facto can just be, people say, well, then it's approved. You guys have approved it because you didn't meet all of those requirements.
Who are we appointing?
So, I really was trying not to get into talking about names this evening, but.
Well,
Let me just try to.
if we don't
yes.
understand it,
Yeah,
how
okay,
can
all
we
right,
vote
all
on
right.
it?
No, it's fine. For tonight, Mr. Priardi, and I'm sorry if I'm killing your name, and Mr. Cushing, are up for reappointment.
And let me just try to make it simple then. I would like to make a motion that we reappoint everyone on the list that was handed to us. It's that simple. Reappoint them for their full terms as we
okay.
see it right now.
I will, again, I will do whatever the board wants to do, but we've got opinion that is not what we should be doing from the investigator. He's saying we should, like,
Abbreviate?
do an abbreviated appointment.
Can I make one
Yeah.
just quick comment?
Yes,
So, I don't fully understand the concern of just reappointing, like Jim had mentioned, for a full term, because if the investigation comes back with something, let's just say that warrants removal, it doesn't matter, because, say, my term has 2 years, and you come back and it warrants removal of me. It doesn't affect the appointment, is what I'm saying.
I get
So
what
if
you're
you were to
saying,
appoint for,
yeah.
say, 3 years out,
yeah.
and it comes back next week that something warrants removal, then you can do it if you have cause, like Ms. Federoff.
It's true, but then you have to go,
I don't fully understand
okay, so
why
here's the difference, here's the distinct difference. So if you appoint somebody for the full term, in order to remove that person, you have to have a hearing. And then it turns into a three-ring circus. If we got the results back and we just said as a board, you know what, those guys, this is all hypothetical, I'm not saying that there's anything there, I don't know. If, on the other hand, you simply appoint somebody for a shorter period of time, and we got something back that said, you know, red flag, you know, don't, whatever, there's an issue there, you simply don't reappoint when that term comes up. So one is you required to have a hearing, or unless the person says, you know what, I'm just gonna resign if, you know, based on the findings or whatever. And then the other is, we just say as a board, based on the findings, we don't have to have a hearing, we're not compelled to have a hearing, we're just not gonna reappoint.
Did you guys receive my email, just a recommendation for both these gentlemen to be reappointed?
I did receive it, but unfortunately, the rest of the board did not.
They have copies if they want to read them.
No, I don't do stuff on the fly. I would have given it to everybody like last week, to try to, you know, read it. So I just,
It was sent May 25th, is what I sent it.
I didn't realize you wanted it to be shared. Was it sent to me on the 25th?
It was sent to Ms. Green and the
Okay.
town clerk.
Yeah. So in the future, if you want anything to be shared with the board, just come through me. I'm the chair, and I'll vet it, and we'll share it.
Well, it's a letter
this-
of recommendation.
And I get that, Mr. Perkins. This is not a question of whether these gentlemen have got the skills to do this job. That is not, that's not in dispute. At least for me, it's not. I can't speak for the rest of the board. We know you guys need to have a quorum, but we've got to balance that with this strange position we're in where we've got a citizen's petition to do a full investigation and figure out whether there's any issues. So I don't know what other, I know what you've said.
Yeah, and the only thing
yeah.
I could tell you is that, when I went to each department head, about Lisa, about the town administrator, Laura, and you and I, you know, had the meetings with Lisa, I can tell you that Virginia, who is the executive assistant for the appeals board,
Just, can I just, not sure what you're gonna
Okay.
say, but I just wanna caution you that there is an active investigation that we've hired an outside person to conduct, and that we really should not be giving our personal opinion on whether we think that what's being investigated is valid or not.
all right, it has nothing to do with the
Okay,
investigation.
I just wanted to tell you that, yeah.
It
yeah.
was, you know, I brought this up because, you know, we were gonna give, or negotiate a contract with Lisa. And just that Virginia had stated about the board that she's working with now, and she's been here, you know.
Quite a while,
Yeah.
yeah.
That this is the best board that she's ever worked with. And that's her opinion, and if I'm speaking out of line for her, you know, she could dispute that, but, that has nothing to do with the investigation. That's an executive assistant, paid position.
Well, she doesn't have to say that, I mean.
Right, she
Yeah.
could have, you know, not said anything, but, I wanted to throw that out there because I wanted to try to keep it as simple as possible. And Mr. Cushing is not the only one on the investigation, Mr. Perkins is too. And if that-
Actually, I just want to remind you, it's everybody, because the board voted.
And
that
that's true.
They did
So
not want to
that
call
if-
out people, which we seem to be doing anyway. So
Can I?
Yeah, and that's true, so if it
Yeah.
comes back, hopefully in the middle of July or August or September, Mr. Perkins would have to go through a hearing.
yes, so
We're
here,
already doing one hearing anyway.
well, no, that's not how so when the results come back from the investigation, we will likely meet in an executive session with the investigator to figure out whether there was any meat on the bone or not. And if there was meat on the bone, then we will talk to our legal counsel about what the next steps are. That likely would be hearings. It may be nobody that's having a hearing. It may be several people that are having a hearing. We don't know. I don't know. I have no information. And I just think it's not productive to speculate. And I really swear that I had intended not to get into any detail about this evening. I really didn't want to mention names. Yes, Ms. Weeks, I see you, just a second. As I said, our investigator is very strongly suggesting that because it's gonna take him, I don't even know, a month or month and a half, I don't even know.
2 years, 2 years is exactly
I
what
don't
he
know.
said.
40 hours of work.
I think he said when we all turn 40.
well-
40 years from now is when.
Hope springs eternal. That we do an appointment perhaps until September, and at that point, you know, if there's no meat on the bone, then it's like, okay, gee, are you guys still interested in serving out the remainder of your term? Great, then we just appoint them, no question. That's the suggestion. And I tried to say that so we didn't have to get into the rest of this conversation, but yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Weeks.
so for me, I feel like, since we're talking about everything, one of the things that we have to do is move away from just the circus that this entire thing has become.
I
If
agree.
the previous board just did the job and just held a hearing really quick instead of doing things behind closed doors and refusing to talk to people and talking to people after talking to people, and we wouldn't be here right now. And this,
I
to me,
agree.
this is absolute insanity. It's taken either, the opportunity for us to actually do an investigation, have an open, transparent with volunteers of the town, to have a conversation about concerns that folks had, turned it into an absolute circus in which if nothing comes back from the investigation, then we just dragged 5 people's name through the mud that had nothing to do with anything, and it's getting absurd. And what drives me nuts is that like behind closed doors in the community, they all take a life of their own. There's like adversarial relationships that just kind of formed out of nowhere, where if this previous board just did their job and just had the conversation in public, we wouldn't even be here right now. So, I know we can't go
absolutely agree
back,
with you, but I do want to
gotta
just
finish.
warn you in terms of latitude, we're not posted to
No.
talk about the investigation.
No, but that's my point. That's my point that I'm trying to get to. And the
Okay.
problem is, it would have saved us from holding files up saying, I have evidence, and it would hold us from not doing all this crazy stuff. What we need to do is 2 things. Because we've already come this far, just whatever the investigator says, we'll just do that for now. But we really have to like finish this because it's getting old. We can't continue whatever the circus is that this has become. And the investigation, although it's been thorough, has been nothing but nonsense. It really has. The second piece is, with these, I don't even know if it solves the problem. I mean, we can appoint everybody on here right now, but unless they're sworn in, they don't even count. So,
Well,
can we get Beth, is Beth here to
no,
swear?
that's why we're doing.
but they have a meeting.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah,
So
Beth,
it
Beth
doesn't
is
even
up
qualify.
there.
We have a meeting.
Beth
Right.
is up
These
there.
members can sit, but if they're not gonna be reappointed, then that's an issue.
No, of course it's
No,
an
but
issue, but
he's-
what I'm saying, you get 2 problems. The first problem is,
They don't have to be sworn in yet, their term expires at the end of the month.
oh, this is the last meeting, this is your last meeting? Oh, okay, so you haven't even done your
But if
first
they
meeting yet?
start a hearing, you
Never
have
mind.
to have everybody from that original hearing.
No, I just thought this was their
continuously-
first meeting
Okay,
of
all
their
right.
new thing.
All right.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, last year this time, we had a bunch of reorganizations after reorganizations after reorganizations.
Yes.
And the reason was this exact same thing. So what we're trying to do is eliminate any ambiguity, whether you're gonna appoint for whatever term, just do what you're gonna do. That way, we're not doing reorganizations after reorganizations and having investigations to the Attorney General's office and then coming back with no finding of no fault of open meeting violations. And that's what the determination was by the Attorney General on our open meeting violations.
I don't think we even knew
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that, so,
FYI,
but
that-
again, we're not posted to talk about that.
Complaints where this is going, on the open meeting violations, on those reorganizations, they came back with no fault to the ZBA, and that was sent to the town, as well as other things with the State Ethics Commission, that came back with no determination on certain people. But the investigator's still doing his job, and I would just say right now, so far, everything you've gotten back, if you haven't got it or not have.
We've gotten nothing
Nothing,
back.
absolutely nothing.
You haven't
So,
got-
because it hasn't been concluded yet.
No.
That's why we don't have
I'm saying,
anything.
Have you got anything back from the State Ethics Commission, Lisa?
They wouldn't send it to us anyway.
Guys, I'm sorry,
Won't send
we,
it to us anyway.
we have completely jumped the track, like I
So,
Okay.
yeah, for me, I just wanted to make sure, that there is technically a motion on the floor for, just so we're following the rules. Because that's the problem with this previous board, we never followed the rules. There's a motion on the floor right now. If it doesn't get a second, it dies. So we have to go with that first.
With
Please-
Jim's motion?
Please repeat the motion.
Jim, it was
Jim made a
Jim's
motion.
motion.
If it doesn't get a second, it
15 minutes
dies.
ago.
No.
But, well, that would just
Without any
leave us.
discussion.
Yeah, but that, yeah, exactly, that just leaves open to discussion. But then, I do think, to keep things consistent, we do a temporary one for the folks to get us through it, so everybody has what they have. That's my discussion
And that's
piece.
what the investigator is
That
suggesting.
is what
Yes.
the
Well,
suggestion
we are
was.
paying him,
A lot of money,
should we not listen to him?
just,
Okay, so is somebody making that motion?
I can't, because there's a motion on the floor, unless you decide to kill it.
Well,
Do I hear a second for Mr. Hickey's
I
motion?
forget what the motion is, I want to hear it
He
again.
wants to just appoint for the remainder,
For the
for the, no, for a new
For the
term.
whole term.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm not pulling it back, so it dies.
yep. Okay, I will entertain another motion.
I'll entertain a motion to, appoint the ZBA, I don't have it in front of me, sorry.
You
I'll-
actually do, it's right here.
No, but I can't find it.
Right here.
I'm blind.
Right there.
Appeals Board. I make a motion to appoint, William Cushing and
Joshua Priani.
Joshua Priani.
I think it's right afterwards.
I'm not
Friday,
seeing it.
sorry.
Friday.
I don't,
Oh, right there, alternate. Okay, all right, I got you. All right, let me start this over. I make a motion to appoint, temporarily appoint William Cushing to the Appeals Board and Joshua Pratty to the Appeals Board as an alternate.
for a period to end September 1st.
If that's, yeah, yes,
Okay.
if that's a recommendation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Oh, okay. And all opposed?
I would like to point out that we could have a continuation there until past that.
Totally recognize that. I honestly think this is just buying us time to get that.
Yeah, well, how long are we gonna kick the can down the friggin' road?
It'll be years.
You know,
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you.
Okay,
we can hold that hearing now.
I appreciate that.
all right, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So he's pissed.
All right, we're gonna take a little recess. Little intermission. Ms. Green, I was hoping, since it did seem to, inspire quite a bit of passion, I was hoping that you might be able to, and we are not posted, but I could not have anticipated reasonably that this would take this turn that it did. So I feel comfortable that we're going to talk about it in open session. By way of a little bit of a lead-in, we had, I don't even know when it started, probably 2 years ago. We had folks that were concerned about the Spring Street project, and they started complaining and saying that they thought that there might be conflicts of interest, et cetera, et cetera. Our board, did not do anything about that. There was definitely a difference of opinion amongst the board, which is gonna happen with us, and it happens with boards, because you've got, individuals who have opinions. And so it got to a point where there was a citizens petition, that was presented, and voted on, at town meeting to do an investigation. You're right, that was at the October town meeting, okay? So, at the October town meeting, it was voted on. It took a little while. We went to our outside counsel and said, could you help us figure out who could do the investigation? Because it's not like this is something that happens every day. She made a couple of calls, and ended up, and I think who else? We had somebody else, helping us out with that too. Anyway, we had a couple different people trying to figure out if we could, if we could, get anybody to help us with the investigation. We ended up with this gentleman, who, Mr. Lampke, who, is an attorney, and has done this type of work before. And he was fairly reasonable, at least within the dollar amount that we were able to, spend. And I think what has happened is that as he has started to investigate, now, I want to be clear, so that was October, I'm not sure when we actually hired him. I thought it was after the first of the year, to be honest with you.
It was probably latter November, I believe, our town council presented the proposals. and we hired these firms, so it was probably December that we actually hired and they began the process.
Okay, and to date, nobody, including Lisa, has gotten any results from the investigation, because that's the way it needs to be. We don't want somebody feeding us piecemeal. This board, the prior board, I should say, had voted, to have everybody investigated, just out of an abundance of fairness, because what sense did it make if you, even though people are sort of complaining about one or two people, why wouldn't you turn over every stone? If you're gonna have somebody do an investigation, then have them look at everybody. It's much more impartial. Everybody's getting treated equally. And so they've been doing that, but, you know, it involves a lot of different records, you know, residency and, permits and all kinds of stuff. And so I had asked Lisa, in anticipation of the fact that we were gonna have the reappointment, tonight, I had said to Lisa, could you reach out and could we get an ETA for Pete's sake? And I was quite surprised, you know, when your byline, the resaid, update, I thought, oh, this is good, we're gonna be able to give the board an. And then when he said it would be mid to late July, and he gave some reasons why, I said to Lisa, let's really mentally, I like to overpromise, underdeliver. The opposite, overpromise, under, whatever, you know what I'm saying, the opposite.
Under promise, over deliver.
Thank you, Joe. I would like to just say, okay, let's act like he said it's August. In this case, we've got till September, really, if, because we may have to meet, we may have to decide whatever's going on. So at any rate, I had no intention of really getting into any of that this evening, but when pushed by the members of the appeals board, and I understand why, they've got business to do, and they're trying to do the right thing, which is to make sure that if they start a hearing, the requirement under the law is you've got to have all of those people that were at the hearing continuously be part of the hearings going forward. So for instance, if they start with somebody that's doing like, the 40B, they will really have a problem if all of a sudden they've got turnover of two of the members. Somebody could question whether or not they were a valid board. So I understand where they were coming from. Anyway, we've made that vote. Hopefully that kind of sets the, kind of gives you guys a better idea of where it is. I know that, there's a lot of speculation and, insinuation and all that stuff. And Mr. Weeks is right. There were a few of us who had really pushed to try to have a more open conversation about what was happening, without indicting anybody, without, casting aspersions. But what ended up happening is, under cloak of darkness, people start imagining the absolute worst, and then it takes on a life of its own. And so if you don't have a willingness as a board to talk about things in the open, and yes, be careful about people's reputations, and be careful about using names and all of that stuff, but it got to a point where we could not do that. When somebody was up for reappointment, that was who we had to talk about, because they were up for reappointment, and it was never anybody's intention to single anybody out, but it became that. And I regret it. I don't like that that's the turn that it took. That's where it went. But, we were dealing with a lack of full transparency and just an open dialogue. And I really think it never needed to get to the point where citizens had to come to us with the citizens petition to talk about concerns that they had. That always just cuts me right to the core when people feel like that's the only way they can get their elected officials to pay attention. But anyway, I've just gotten on a soapbox, which I will now step down from, and we can move on, unless anybody had anything else they wanted to add. Okay.
I
Mr.
don't
Hill.
want to mention anybody's names, but the two gentlemen that we just
Yes,
appointed,
yeah.
you mentioned that was the whole board that they were discussing.
They are part of that board.
They were part of
It's
that
being
board, but were
They're
they
being
the issue?
investigated. They,
You know what I mean?
one of them would have been one of the primary concerns that people had. And that's all I can say about that without violating my own rules, and I won't be the person I want to be. Okay, so with that, and hopefully the remainder of the list will be very non-controversial, and we will move on. So since we're already in it, we might as well just do the appointments, which is a bit out of order. But I will say, Lucia and Lisa spent quite a bit of time trying to cobble together, this list. There were a lot of lists that were maybe not accurate, a little bit out of order. Did everybody have a chance to kind of quickly look at it?
Yes.
And is there anything that, it may be that after we do these appointments, if Beth sends notes to people saying, congratulations, you've been reappointed to such and such a committee, we may very well get some resignations. Just if people that didn't think to tell us that they didn't want to be on a committee or not. And looking at the appointments, it's, I also had Lisa and Lucia put you guys in for the different committees that you had
Oh,
said that
okay.
you would do. So even though we already voted on that, I just thought out of abundance of caution, we'll just reiterate that you're going to be on those committees. And looking at this list, the Capital Improvement Committee really, 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 really needs people. So if you're out there and you're
That's
looking
the
for a
one that I
way,
do the announcement for, right?
yes.
And I put things up on 2 groups in town to try to
Yes.
attract.
Well, if you're out there and you're looking to make a difference, this really actually is a committee that you could make a difference in. It's really weighing the various capital expenses and prioritizing. And we are required to have this committee, and we're required to have their capital improvement matrix in order to vote for any capital improvement over $35,000 at town meeting. So it's a good way if you're kind of interested in, getting your feet wet, learning a little bit more about the town. If you've got an opinion on capital expenditures, this is definitely a committee to get on. It's definitely a committee we could do more with. Yes, Mr. Heel?
How many people are on this, supposed to be on this committee?
Well, 7 people, is what's supposed to be on, and
And I-
right now, we have a Hale and Hardy, Mr. Weeks, and actually, why is Ken Sweezy not on? Perhaps his appointment isn't
Is
up.
he not due?
Oh,
for
yeah.
Reed?
He's not
Yeah,
due,
Appointed,
yeah.
right, his term is not up.
So it's Mr. Ken Sweezy and Mr. Joe Weeks.
That's it.
So I had mentioned last week that I would like to be on
Okay.
that also,
Yeah,
so
I
if
noticed
could be.
that.
So
there's no
let's,
spot
we
yet.
can add, Mr. Heel in, and, for,
There's a blank line for me
Yeah,
right
there's,
there.
there's already a spot for him.
yeah.
Like it was planned.
For a 3-year term, and then we will still need another,
You need at least one more.
Mr. Tarvis.
For anyone who's watching this speaker, Jarvis, I'm just wondering if there's a way that maybe we could come up with a matrix of all the different boards, departments, committees, whatever, that are, the amount of members that are actively on it and ones
Yes.
that are needed.
Yes.
Because I'm always happy to help out in other things and stuff, but I don't really know what's truly open and what's not.
Is that something?
That was something I think would just be good to post out there, so.
We really do
so,
need- yeah.
Oh, they're really in dire need, there's one member on the board.
No, we really do need to do that. Once we, appoint these folks, then we'll have, critical mass on the information that will be needed to kind of back into that. But that capital improvement is definitely a critical area. And then also the highway, feasibility committee that Mrs. Rain is going to be heading up, because although there are some members, a few of them have kind of fallen off. So we're going to need some folks. So those are two, I don't mean to sound like a geek, but they're kind of interesting committees, and they're a good way, if you don't want a lifetime commitment. Capital improvement meets like, what, 4 times a year, maybe?
Yeah, and I also think that capital improvement, just in general, is a great introduction committee to anybody that just wants to get involved in municipal government in general, because, one, it's a very low commitment to the meetings, but on the other end, you get to meet with all the department heads, you get to know the needs, and you have a little bit of a say anyways, in prioritizing the priorities of the town. So it's just a great all-around entry-level committee.
And the highway, we saw how passionate people were at town meeting about it, and we know our highway guys need better facilities. So that's one I just think, again, I don't think it's gonna be a heavy lift. I mean, maybe once a month you might meet, I don't know, that will have to be determined, but yes, Mr. Tarvis.
Very fastly, are there any boards that require certain, experience in jobs or anything like that? No? Okay.
No. Right now, the current requirement is, we check for your pulse. No, I'm joking.
Breathing.
I'm joking. I joke, but in a way, it breaks my heart, right? Because I know that there are towns around us that literally have a volunteer bank of people that as openings are coming up, they're like, who do we want from these 40 people who have put in their application? That is not our situation, but it is what I aspire to.
We're stuck at 1885.
Yes.
Now, in terms of how we get information out.
Yep.
You do appointments on the spot.
Pardon?
You do appointment on the spot to a board. Like right now, if I said, hey, I'll join something.
We are permitted to do that. Our requirement is that we meet the person, that we have some knowledge of, because sometimes we get people that it's like, well, we don't really know, and you just want to make sure they don't have some weird axe to grind or whatever. I don't know that we've ever actually not appointed anybody.
Are we getting a volunteer?
Yes.
I can fill the space on capital improvement. But that's what it was, right? Capital
Yes,
improvement,
that's great. Look at this.
That's great.
This is a productive meeting.
Just the only thing, I would just ask the same thing before we, this has to be this question you ask everybody. It's just any.
No conflicts of interest.
Thank you very much.
I will double check with,
And just make sure you do the,
board, but
thank you.
I think I'm fine.
And then just do the disclosure thing, if you have any disclosures you have to make.
So now you need at least one more member, and you will have a quorum if you all are able to meet at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, so
We're on our
so
way.
just to be clear, we're going with our current list, and we're adding Ed Heel and Kurt Tarvis for 3-year terms. So I will entertain a motion
Motion for what?
to appoint all of
The
the
slate.
folks as listed in this attachment.
Do I need to recuse myself for,
No, you can appoint yourself.
I can appoint
Yes.
myself?
Yep.
Okay.
Just on a technicality,
Mr.
minus the ones that were provisional.
Minus the
Aside
two.
from, right, thank you, aside from appeals board appointments. Right,
Second.
so, did I have a motion?
I thought you did. Did you?
Okay, and you're seconding?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Are you gonna do discussion now on
The
it?
discussion, yes.
The 200th anniversary committee?
Yes.
Would not like to be, appointed for 1 year. We would like to go with the September.
Okay,
And also the deregionalization feasibility committee.
Yep.
Now that the financial
TMS,
from
yeah,
TMS
yeah.
is in,
Yep.
we'll go with September 1st on that also.
do you think that's gonna give you enough time with the summer and
Well,
vacations and?
I've talked, put the email out that, we're gonna discuss it, and then, I would hope, by August 1st, that we would come back to this board with the recommendations, so that.
Do you wanna give the end of the year, just in case,
All right,
cause
yeah,
they
we
might,
can-
you might have to
December
present
31.
to us, maybe present, I don't know, I'm just thinking
Well,
worst
I
case
think-
scenario.
Yeah, I think, we can do that.
Okay.
December 31st.
Okay,
Both committees will be done.
all right, so we'll do.
And that will give me time to join the capital improvement committee.
Okay, so, just to be clear, we're voting on the current list in front of us with the following modifications. The 200th anniversary will be appointed with the length of term to end on 9/1/22. We are accepting out the appeals board members because we already voted on that. We are adding in Ed Heel and Kurt Tarvis to the capital improvement. And we are changing the appointment for the deregionalization feasibility committee so that it's a period to end 12/31/22. Any other discussion? Okay. All right, with that, I will entertain, yes, Ms. Green.
Oh, Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to make sure I have all of this right.
Please do.
Okay, so the 200th anniversary committee, was that going to be till the end of September, or is that one going to be part of December 31?
That's till the end of September.
End of September?
Yep.
Okay, so that would be 9/30, okay.
Because you're just doing the time capsule thing, right? And
Yeah,
then,
that's all we have
Okay,
left.
yep.
and-
So, okay, so 9/30/22 will be the end, okay. Deregionalization, that will be until December 31?
yes.
Okay, so we'll change that. Capital Improvement Committee, so we now have Ed Heel, Kurt Travis, who are now, have been appointed as members.
Yep.
Yes. Correct, okay.
That's for 3-year terms.
So that's for both for 3-year terms?
Yep.
Okay. And I think, and then, so the Appeals Board, those two provisional until September 30th,
We said September 1st.
September 1st,
Yep.
okay.
And,
So many dates,
just a
okay.
note, Joe had done the motion, just so you can note it on there, full disclosure, as alternates.
I had provisional, so alternates?
It was the-
Oh, you mean on the capital improvement?
No,
Oh.
for,
The appeals board?
ZBA.
Okay.
ZBA, you had.
It was a full member.
Prati is a,
Pratty's an alternate.
right, yep,
Okay.
Oh, yes, but both of them
both of them until 9/1.
until 9/1.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Just want to make
Okay.
sure I get these letters right.
Any
Okay,
further
thank you.
discussion? I hesitate to ask,
I appreciate
okay.
the thoroughness, though, honestly.
Okay, all right, then, can we get another just because we've covered a bit of distance between, the original motion and,
So moved.
okay?
Second.
Fantastic, all in favor?
Aye.
Fabulous, I don't know,
Just
yes.
and it went right out of my head.
Well, it's not a speak now, forever hold your
No, I
peace
know.
type of thing.
It was a question about, and it's gone. It'll come back.
Okay.
At 3:00 in the morning.
Did anybody have any committee updates? Mr. Hickey, it sounded like you might, about TMS, about TMS? Oh, well, whatever you want, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, no, Council on Aging just had a summer, kickoff cookout that was today, very successful. As far as TMS, with the deregionalization feasibility committee, put the email out for us to discuss, and then we'll come back and, make the recommendation to the board.
So are you thinking maybe by is the 14th right? I feel like that's not the right date.
No, that would be too close. I just think with
14th?
summer vacation, we'll go with, it's a 4-year process, believe it or not, anyway. So sometime in August that, we have everybody here.
Okay.
My entire group and all of us here that, we could sit down.
Do you want to try to shoot for, like the 8th? Or do you
Sure.
want to go more like the
August.
22nd of August?
No, August 8th would be perfect.
I think the 8th would be good since we did, yeah.
That's an
And
exciting
that would be
meeting.
plenty of time for TMS. I'm sure they'll want to be present.
Oh, yes, we'd
yeah.
set them up to come in and do the presentation.
Okay, and then we could just use the other date in August as a backup.
Okay, great. That sounds
Can I
fantastic.
ask a question?
Yes,
Is there
please.
anybody on the bylaw review committee yet?
Yes, there are people on the bylaw review
But
committee.
they're not listed on that list because they're not up for reappointment.
Right, exactly. And also, so the bylaw review committee is gonna be a Herculean task. So, the first, piece of that is, we're going out to an organization that goes through and does all the flow-through changes and makes sure that we're saying the same thing the state bylaws say, yada, yada. And then we go through at a local level and say, is this what we're doing? Is this what we really meant? So we're not really at that point where we've gotten the product back from the consultant.
Right.
So we really can't meet, but we do need to get that critical mass of people so that when we do.
I think the
we can-
matrix is kind of important, so
Yes.
people can see what's empty. And
Yep.
hopefully fill it in.
I agree. Lisa, I think that is something that I'd really like us to do better about, and I'm not casting aspersions at you because this has been a historical issue, where it's been very unclear. I remember before I was a select person, I remember saying, how do I know what openings there are? And it was sort of, you needed a decoder ring to figure it out. And I'm afraid we really haven't gotten much better about it. And again, we cannot bemoan the lack of engagement if we're not telling people how they can be engaged, if we don't get that information out there. So, that's something I think, we've got this list, and it seems to me as though rather than you guys running around like maniacs trying to figure out who's who in the zoo and who's showing up and who isn't, just do an all massive email to all of the boards and committees and say, is everybody showing up? Is everybody still interested? This is who we've got. Is this an accurate list? Can you get back to us and let us know? I know it's not scientific, and it would be wonderful if we could forensically go through, but I fear that is a much more laborious process than what we need to do, which is just go to the source. They know who's showing up, they know who's still on board, and then we can figure out what the openings are. And then Mrs. Rain will really have an accurate list of openings on committees to read
And I
every,
will put it out too, to see if we can attract.
Yeah, and then you will say, no good deed goes unpunished,
I
because it
know.
will go
I
on forever
understand
with the
that.
list.
I get that.
I mean, absolutely, and when I tell you, we put in a tremendous amount of work trying to get this list updated, because it really just completely fell apart.
I know that, yeah.
One of the things that-
So, and
Yes.
part of
Common
the
recurring
challenge
theme.
is, we don't know how to contact a lot of the people on these committees.
That's why I'm saying, if you just reach
They-
out to the
they-
chair, I
Well,
think, you
sometimes
know.
we don't even know who the chair is.
Honestly, if
if
there's
we've
anybody
reached
you
out to
don't have a
somebody,
contact for,
you know?
let me know.
Yeah,
I have,
I mean, we
yeah.
we do some digging to try and figure it out, and fortunately, we've made some strides. But there's still a lot to do, but this list is by far the most up-to-date, and there are improvements and more up-to-dates to do, but we're getting there. And just to update, on the dates for the selectmen, the calendar. So, for right now, the June 21st meeting was an extra meeting, and we
Yep.
do have another meeting next week.
Yep.
And then after that, we're not scheduled to meet again until July 12th.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know
I
why,
thought that got changed to the 19th.
it did,
We changed it to the 19th?
Yes.
Okay, so we had to, okay, that's right, so, all right, so let me change that to the 19th.
and I don't know why this is saying the 14th, but it's inaccurate.
Okay, yeah, all right, so then after that, the 26th of July is
Yep.
still intact?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so then after that, we had August 9th, and August 9th was the TMS date. Okay,
Yep,
and then after that, we have August 23rd is going to be a large meeting, because that will be presenting the special town meeting articles that are due, so.
and so the, July 19th meeting will be when we open the, town meeting warrant. And so, I know it sounds absurdly early, but start thinking about things that we want to put in as the select board for articles. It's crazy that we're like, just starting summer solstice and we're talking about the October town meeting, but that's just the way the timing goes, so. Okay, but we were in the middle of committee reports, and you, of course, have not started your committee, yet.
Right.
And I think we probably need to find some time to have you sit down with Kenny so he can kind of lay up where he was at and hand over whatever he's got for files, and then set up a meeting with Weston Sampson and kind of get their,
Those are engineers.
they're
civil
the
engineers?
engineer, yeah.
okay.
They're the ones that have done like 80% of the
Right.
plan according to Kenny. And for my part, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the Economic Development Committee. I'm not gonna get into in nauseating detail tonight, what that is, but I think probably at a future meeting, I'll tell you guys, I put together a document, for the Economic Development Committee. Our vice chair had said, hey, Laura, I feel like we're doing a lot of stuff, but like I've lost track. So I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna take a while to figure out all the things that we had done. And I have to say, I'm saying we in the royal sense, but really Tony and Lisa have done a bunch of stuff for us. And when I started putting it together, I was like, this is unbelievable. Now, our next phase, we've sort of set a foundation of looking for grants for sidewalks, looking for grants for a potential boardwalk that's going to connect Main Street to Burridge, looking at how we might be able to get a flow up to Plymouth County Hospital. We've got a whole bunch of grants that are out there that have been applied for. I don't know what the results will be, but we've got them out there. Our next phase is going to be, and this is why I wanted Tony to talk to you guys, because I really, before the Economic Development Committee takes the next step, I want you guys to have that same information and help give us a vision, right? We want to be executing the way that you guys want us to execute, because it's a selectman committee. I want Tony to tell us, what are the potential revenue properties in town? What do we own that we can leverage? And how do we do that? And what would be the process of getting there? Because what we want to do is, once the board agrees, oh, well, that's a property we might want to lease, and this is a property that we might want to sell, whatever that might look like, we want to take an economic plan that this prior board had paid to have done, where we had a consultant come in and he told us what the demographics of the town were and what businesses would likely be successful in town. And we want to work on recruiting those businesses. We want to work with the Metro Chamber, South, what is it, the South, Metro Chamber South? I think
South
that's-
Shore Metro
yeah.
Chamber of Commerce.
And work on seeing if we can shop out Hanson to businesses and have them relocate, here. So that's our next phase, but in the meantime, and that's a big, goal. In the meantime, we've got a lot of little things that might not be all that, particularly, like noteworthy, but for instance, we have a grant that we got to put together a booklet for businesses that want to locate in Hanson, so that here's what you need to do about a sign, here's what you need to do if you want, here's the zoning bylaws, here's the da-da-da-da. So we've got that in the works. So a lot of foundational work, and now we're about to go into this next phase, where we're really gonna get out there and pound the pavement and see what we can do to get some businesses here. Because we bemoan the fact that we don't have any commercial or industrial base, we gotta do something about it. That isn't to say we're gonna change the town. We're gonna do it in a way that's compatible. And the Economic Development Committee is very committed on that. And one of the other things that we've been looking at is, we were very hopeful along Main Street. The old liquor store has been purchased, and they received permission from ZBA to put 3 or 4 condominiums, I believe 3. And then there was the old Whole Scoop at the end of High Street and Main, the corner of High Street and Main. There is a developer who purchased that and the building next to it, and again, has gone through ZBA and has got permission to do a mixed-use condos and some commercial space below. And so if you start seeing that development along Main Street, the hope is that that will start putting steady pressure on folks who might be in between, who may have not brought things up to par. And perhaps their property suddenly becomes a little bit more valuable and they want to sell it if they don't have the money to do what they need to do. But that's our hope. But we're going to see some forward movement. The problem is a lot of that, in addition to the development next to McDonald's, has been stalled because of the exorbitant cost of building materials. So we were really chugging along in 2019 and then, came to a screeching halt. I'm hoping that, they start reassessing. And I'm just hoping that the housing market doesn't soften so much that they don't even want to do that. So that's where we're at with that. Merquan reuse, as you guys all heard, one of the things, Ms. Green, that we really need to get before October town meeting is the cost for tear down of Merquan. Because we've got to get that on the warrant. That is step one to doing anything there. Even if we just want to put a baseball field, we've got to tear the building down. So, we've gotten very good feedback. People kind of get that's where we're at. Like, we've tried. We tried to be, green and reuse and all that good stuff, but it's just, the market just isn't there for that building. So that's where we're at on those 2 committees. Mr. Weeks, did you have anything? Nope. Okay, and Mr. Hill? Okay, great. All right, so that's where we're at with that. And moving on to our agenda, we have got the one-day licenses. I will entertain a motion. Again, I think I mentioned at the prior meeting that we try not to necessarily give names and dates and what have you, because we have been the harbingers of surprise news, and we've ruined surprises by mentioning names. So we generally just make a motion to accept all one-day licenses printed in the agenda. So I will entertain that motion.
Ken used to ask, make sure everybody's all up to date with their fees and anybody that's applying for a liquor license, right? Want to make sure that we're still doing that? Everybody's paid up full, there's no issues issuing them?
These liquor licenses here are one-day liquor licenses for the camp, for Kiwanee, for people who are holding, events there. So they pay the $40 fee. So, yeah, that's the only fee that they pay when you issue these liquor licenses. These are not for businesses.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Answers the question then.
okay, great.
So I'll
So,
make a motion to approve as presented.
All right, fantastic. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I can see a trend emerging here. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. And then we've got appointments, and we do have an 8 o'clock wage and personnel, but I think we can get through this in 10 minutes, or, well, I'm not sure, I mean, I guess, I don't want to abbreviate you, but, appointment of Ellen Nagel as Camp Kawani event caretaker, appointment of Taylor Grossman as Camp Kawani event caretaker, appointment of Francesca Luongo as Camp Kawani event caretaker, and appoint Renee Brown as event coordinator. And Ms. Green, can you just lay this up? I assume these folks have all been vetted and, you know, all that good stuff and
Yes.
interviewed and,
So I sat in on the interviews with these folks, basically, Ms. Nagel, Grossman, and Luongo are Whitman Hanson, students, they're, juniors and seniors. They live in Hanson, they know Camp Kawani, all lovely young ladies, and I can't think, they'll be fantastic, assets to being event caretakers. They were all very, cute. You know, they were adorable. And they're, as event caretakers, they're gonna help set up weddings and all the other, events that go on. And Ms. Brown has been a caretaker who has been working in the office with, Dory, Ms. Jameson, helping out, taking phone calls, talking with a lot of the folks who are planning the events. She was the only applicant for the event coordinator, very knowledgeable, works great with people, very organized. You know, very good choice for that, position. So, all four are excellent candidates, and they're gonna be great assets to Camp Kawani.
okay, great. So I will entertain a motion to appoint, each of those 4 individuals as printed in our agenda.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Okay, fantastic. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Fantastic. And we've already done the annual appointments, so we're moving right along. And that brings us to the town administrator report. Ms. Green?
Well, very short and sweet this week, since we had last week. I would just like to say today, Selectman Heel and myself attended the Depot Village ribbon cutting ceremony. That is the new 48-unit apartment building on Phillip Street, that has the walkway to the commuter rail station. The building is amazing, I have to say. We were fortunate enough, we got a tour of the building. We got a tour of the 3 apartment unit in the building. The building is energy efficient. It is, as they described it, pandemic-proof, because it is built in a way that does not allow the air to circulate throughout the building. The whole structure is airtight. So the air comes in and out. It doesn't come in and circulate through the rest of the building. And there was a lot of work put into this to make sure the building is extremely energy efficient. It has solar panels on the roof. It's a great property. It's I believe our first full affordable housing unit. It's 48 units. They're all leased. And it was just a really nice ceremony. Senator Brady was there, State Representative Cutler was there, as well as members from some of the funding organizations who included Mass Housing Partners, great grant funding organizations as well. So we really look forward to doing much more work with this company, in the town of Hanson. And when you look at the building, it's very kind to look at. It fits in with the surroundings. It's not something that jumps out at you. It's a great addition to the town. I really look forward to having more of these types of properties built, because they put a lot of thought into how it's going to fit into our community. Great work. Congratulations to them all. I was happy to attend and honored, with Selectman Heel, and, look forward to working with them on more properties. And that's about the end of my town administrator report for tonight.
That's great, and it does occur to me as you're saying that I think the prior board, we had Mr. DeFrayis come and talk to us about the MBTA communities. But I don't know if Ed and Ann, if you guys had a chance, we can either have, Tony do a reprieve and have him come and do that again. Or if you have nothing better to do, you could listen to our prior meeting. But it's interesting because, and I do highly recommend it because it does play into the economic development piece. We are getting, extreme pressure from the state. If you are an MBTA community, then, you know, they're really pushing, you will not be eligible for certain grants if you do not have affordable housing near the MBTA. So Mr. DeFrayis is saying, okay, if we know that, and we know that, for instance, the 40B, you really want to try to manage where that is going to end up, then you do an overlay, a 40R overlay district, which is what the planning board has been talking about. And it's trying to make the best of the state mandates and not lose out on the grants, but also not have, necessarily people building in places within town that just aren't compatible. You know, I mean, if you're in a little subdivision, you know, little cul-de-sac, it's not gonna really work to have like all of a sudden this huge four-story building, you know, with, you know, hundreds of people. I think it's something to kind of take a look at, or do you, I mean, you guys could
Now that
easily.
you mentioned it, I did see that.
Okay, you did, okay, because I was gonna say, I know Tony would be totally open to you guys popping in and talking to him about it, and he could bring you up to speed, but I just mention it because I do think it's gonna be important in the underpinnings of some of the stuff we're gonna end up talking about within the next year or so. Okay, so with that, this is like an amazing thing, we are at 1 minute, 1 minute past, okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn our regular select board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor? Okay.
That end of the table.
And then we are going to go into our, wage and personnel, which I believe, Mr. Weeks, that's you.
That would be me. All right. All right.
Actually, Mr. Weeks, Wage and Personnel needs to reorganize.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm gonna open it and then I'm gonna move it to you.
Yes.
So, we got Wage and Personnel Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 at 8 PM, Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall, open session. I call the meeting to order. And, first order of business, reorganization, so I'm passing the gavel to Lisa.
Yes, good evening. So this is the Wage and Personnel first meeting after town election. And I will call to order and ask for everyone to stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under new business, reorganization, I will entertain a nomination for Chair of the Wage and Personnel Committee Board.
Is there anybody who would like to serve as chair? I don't want to nominate somebody who
Oh,
doesn't.
is there anybody that would like to volunteer for Chair?
I was going to nominate you. Okay. Mr. Weeks?
I don't mind doing it if someone nominates. I don't mind.
Okay, I nominate Joe Weeks.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Heel.
Any other nominations?
Any other nominations? Okay. I'll call for a vote for Mr. Weeks as Chair of the Wage and Personnel Board. Four? Five, okay, 5-0. And in that being said, Mr. Chair, I will hand the gavel to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I do appreciate the confidence for a second round at this, or at least if I just happen to draw the short straw again, I appreciate falling into it again.
Keep wearing your rose-colored glasses.
That's what it is. I just like to. Next up is Vice Chair, so I will accept nominations for Vice Chair.
Nominated here for Vice Chair.
Are you interested in that?
I'll accept that.
Okay, second.
All right, so we have a Ed nominated.
second?
Any other nominations before we move on? Seeing none? All right. So all those in favor of Ed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you, Jim.
And lastly, we have Secretary. Any nominations for Secretary?
nominate Ann Rain, she's doing such a great job
It was such a great job
Very
reading
consistent.
other
Yeah.
people's notes.
for secretary.
You, again, you're not having to take notes for this.
Okay.
Yeah, so just, yeah,
Okay, fine.
yeah. I second Ann.
All right. Any other nominations? Seeing none. All right, all those in favor? All right, 5-0, 4-0,
Mr. Chair,
No,
if
it's
I
five.
may, if I
is
may?
it 5?
5-0. Taking a step back to Vice Chair Heel, who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
All right, well, congratulations, everybody, appreciate it, and I appreciate willingness to serve in those seats. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next piece, salary discussion for IT Director and Council on Aging Director. Ms. Green, would you mind walking us through that?
Yes. I just want to check, okay, that in your wage and personnel packet, did you all receive the classification, the section 11 portion? I see that,
This one.
no, the actual graph.
Oh, the
with all
graph, yes.
With all the salaries on it, did you all receive that?
Section 11B?
Yes,
Right here?
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I just want to make sure everybody had that.
Article 27, you're saying?
Section
Oh, I
11C.
see, A, okay.
Section
looking at
11D
C?
Oh, I
and
see, okay,
11E.
yep, okay, yep.
The graphs.
Okay.
Okay.
so, yes.
All right, so the first part of the discussion is going to look at the salaries for the Council on Aging Director and the IT Director. Basically, those salaries, as we have them listed now, and I apologize that I do not have any surveys to provide you. People are, these days, have just not been getting back to us on salary surveys. It's been difficult, and so many towns right now are doing salary surveys that it's hard for us to get back to them and them to get back to us, so. But I can tell you from some emails that the Director for Elder Affairs here in Hanson is underpaid. Some of the other towns that came through, their salary ranges are in the low 70s and then above that.
Yep.
And I would just like to maybe get an idea of where the Wage and Personnel Board would like to go so that we can prepare this for October special town meeting for vote on what they would like to look at for an increase in the salary for our Elder Affairs Director.
Tell me-
Like I said,
Director.
I believe, you know, the towns around us are ranging anywhere from 72,000 up to, you know, 103,000, but that's the more.
Is that the first
affluent.
line item?
Yeah,
Which
it's A.
line item?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's section 11A, number A, or letter
Letter
A,
A.
Director of Elder Affairs.
So it's the Council on Aging Director is the Director of Elders Affairs?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, yep.
Yes.
Look, I know Mary doesn't like us to call her a saint, but she is. And she does an amazing job up there, and she is way more than, you know, like the senior center. People may or may not realize that she's essentially social services for not even just seniors, like, she's, you know, really for the town, for anybody in need. Mary pretty much will help them figure out the food pantry or, you know, healthcare coverage or whatever. And I want to keep her and I want to pay her what she's worth. So if you're saying most people are getting a bare minimum, 75,000, then at the very least, we need to bring her up to 75,000.
Can I ask, the range we have here is not specifically for her, that's
No,
for the
that's-
position?
Yes,
Right.
yep, yep.
Could we bring her up to 75,000 and make this higher so that?
That's what we're, yes, so that's what we're trying to do is,
That's actually gonna be my
come up with that. So through you, Mr.
Yep.
Chair, through to Ms. Green, Ms. Green, I would like to, but there's, I don't think any argument that, you know, Mrs. Collins, should receive an increase. I do really always feel much more comfortable when we have hard data, to, you know, just, you know, some empirical data that says, towns similar to ours, Halifax, they're paying this, such and such a town is paying this. And I know you're saying that it's difficult to get, but I think it's irresponsible of us to just, kind of guess and throw a dart at a dartboard, to try to figure out what that dollar amount is. I'm wondering, do we have to vote on this tonight? Could we, punt a little bit and allow you some time to get that information?
Yes, yes, I apologize, I've been trying to pull the stats up that I had on this computer. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I can give you some, but then I can put it on a graph. So
Okay.
Abington pays 70,000. Let's see, Marshfield pays 103,000. Norwell pays 102,000. Kingston pays 80,000. Let's see, West Bridgewater is 72,000 now, in FY '23, they're going up to 74,000. We have Norton is 64 right now, they're going up to 69 in FY '23. The little town of Avon is 62. Town of Rockland is 73. And I bought, like I say, we got all these emails that came in. The town of Rainham, now that one I was a little surprised of, given the financial status of Rainham, 55,000.
Do you have Halifax and East Bridgewater?
Let's see. Berkeley is only 25 hours a week, and it's 26. Let's see, I don't have Halifax, because Halifax doesn't have a town administrator right now, so it's
Yes, that's.
difficult to reach out to them.
Yep.
Dayton, actually, there's no salary out of Dayton, and then Hanover gave me a graph to look at, and I haven't been able to look at their graph.
Okay.
So that's what we have so far for our closest communities. Halifax does not have a town administrator, so it's almost impossible to get any information out of them right now. And East Bridgewater, I can reach out to Charlie Seelig of what East Bridgewater is, because I don't have his in here. But that gives you an idea of where our close neighboring towns are as far as their,
That's helpful. Yeah, if we can get comparisons of towns that are not just around us, but also ones that are similar to our, the typical run-of-the-mill stuff, typical income, population size, usage, stuff like that. That'd be the most useful data if we can get something along those lines.
okay, yep, we can work on that.
It seems to me as though we clearly, even just based on that, she's underpaid. We're not a Marshfield, and I suspect.
And not a Norwell.
We're not a Norwell, but I also suspect the devil's in the details on the scope of the responsibilities for each of those jobs, and perhaps there's more to those jobs than just,
There
what.
also might be a difference in demographics.
Yes,
Yes.
Because Hanson tends to keep people. People tend to stay here.
Yep.
Throughout their lifetime.
Yep.
Whereas Norwell and Marshfield are a little bit more transient.
yep, okay, I think that's a good point. So, at the very least, I would like to see us try to bump her up, and if it's by, if we say like our goalpost is 75,000, then maybe the first bump is to 70, and then the next to 75 to try to get her to where she should be.
Yeah, to me, the no-brainer is the salary increase. We just have to figure out what's a responsible
Yeah,
increase
yes.
that we can
Right.
afford, is really what it comes down
We will
to.
work on getting you as much information as we can from our surrounding communities.
Okay.
And
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just an update
absolutely.
on Mrs. Collins' salary. We decided, I'm pretty sure the board voted, months ago, instead of the annual 2% or the 2.25, to give Mary a 3.5,
I thought we, yeah, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Which, so on July 1st, her salary will go up from what it is now at around 67 to 69,345.
All right, so this matrix isn't even accurate right now.
No,
So we're
Well,
not,
that'll
we're
be the
not
second thing,
actually
yeah.
that far off from a good target
no,
with that.
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, matrix has been outdated now
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if what we need to do tonight, or whenever we get the data, or if we want to wait to do that, is to not necessarily vote on Mrs. Collins' salary, but vote on the parameters for this matrix of what the cap will be.
Yeah, no, I think that,
Yeah.
so for me, the real crux of this conversation is moving this to be more in line with the rest of the departments, because regardless of what the other towns are doing, if you just look at it, the only one that's kind of an outlier is the recreation director at 50,000. Everybody else is already sitting at between 70 and $80,000. So for me, there's two separate conversations here. The first is, how do you bump this up to make it in line with what everybody else is getting, because it's comparable, just in terms of salary range. And an increase on the high end of this does not equate to an automatic pay increase for the person who's currently occupying the line. So this is relatively neutral, innocuous for what we need to do. So if somebody wants to raise that number up, by any number, as long as it's within that range, I feel like it's more than appropriate.
Then I'd like to make the motion that we change, the number for, 10/4/21, which would be 10/4/22. With 20, yeah.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, one other thing I needed to bring up is, the matrix too is outdated, that's accurate.
Yeah.
And what happened was, if the board, the two members may remember what happened at last October town meeting. Oh, yes, we had somebody who got up and walked out and then basically never came back. So this didn't get updated, and we were working on annual town meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't catch it, that those figures weren't updated, but we focused on a couple of the other ones, but these were not up. So there is a lot of updating that needs to go on this that will happen. But unfortunately, because all of those things happen, it got right by me.
Okay, but
Well, for me,
So-
just, hold on a
But
second.
right
just
now,
for-
we're gonna
for-
talk,
Yeah,
you know.
Jim has a motion on the,
Yes.
he's working on a motion, so I want to stick to that
Yes.
first.
Okay.
Okay, then, so for FY '23, I'd like to change the, salary for, Director of Elder Affairs to, 45,000 to 75,000.
Is that too low?
I was thinking the same thing, Ed, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if the cap, maybe we should do 85. It isn't that we're gonna give her 85, but it gives you more latitude. We don't have to keep coming back and revoting this matrix.
Oh, I was just
Yeah,
trying to
he
stay in
was
the
just-
middle.
Yeah,
Between this,
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
yeah,
You give
seven, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever number you feel is appropriate.
I'd like
80.
45 to 80, 80. yeah.
45 to
Okay,
80.
Yep.
So moved.
All right, so we got a motion and a second by Ed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? 5-0. All right, thank you. We're gonna do the same thing for the salary discussion for the IT director, which looks like it is 11A.I.
That's correct.
All right, and it's highlighted, is that highlighted on purpose as 60?
I'm not really sure why it was highlighted. I don't know if it was a typo or not. That was a starting pay. And then it was, I mean, it looks like the minimum from 7/1/21 was at 50, and then it was increased to 60 as the minimum, but the maximum stayed the same.
Okay, so maybe you can walk us through the bullet point and why it's on the agenda here?
Discuss somewhere.
For the information, for IT director, so there's been a request to increase, elevate the salary for the IT director. And again, based on what the other towns are paying, for IT these days, basically none of them are making under the six-figure salary. So one figure that was, talked about was moving it up to 105. And then I did have a conversation with our town accountant, and he said, well, we should move it up to 115. Again, that way we don't need to keep coming back.
Yep.
IT is crucial, it's essential. A town cannot go without an IT director. There's too much at stake for us to not have an IT director who's dedicated. Sharing does not work. I don't know of any other town that does sharing. Everybody has their own dedicated IT person. And if we lose, because IT out there is basically in high demand right now, if we lose out, we start all over again, and we don't want to keep going through that with everything the town has. So, our town accountant is comfortable with raising it up to 115, not bringing the salary right away up to 115, but again, as Ms. Kemen said, it gives you some room without having to keep coming back.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say that all these positions are incredibly important. We don't want to lose anybody. So whatever we can do to try to make ourselves competitive and attractive, but also be responsible with taxpayers' money is where we want to be, so.
But retaining the talent that we do have right
Yep.
now.
Recruitment and retention.
So I will make a motion to increase the top end of the information technology director to 115,000.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion and a second by Ann. All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? All right, 5-0. Perfect. And then we have, general bylaw, Article 2-12, classification and compensation, section 11, wage update. Did that without my glasses. I'm proud of myself.
So that actually circles around to what I was talking about with what happened last year,
Yep.
with this not getting updated. So what happened was, all of the high end of these salaries, they did not get updated the 2%. So all of these salaries need to be updated the 2%.
Yeah.
To be where they're supposed to be. And again, the town accountant came in and said, oh, well, you know, this person's making more than this, but that's because it was never updated the 2%. So what we'll do for the next meeting, and we'll have, hopefully schedule wage and personnel for the 28th, is we'll have all of these figures updated to match what the 2% increase should be. That would be effective, basically, 10/4/21 will be over where 7/1/21 is, then the next column will be where 7/1/22 should be. I'm very sorry, it's confusing.
No, that, it makes sense.
But this is again, something that we've got to work on, that wasn't done prior, that we need to get back up to speed, but,
Okay, Laura?
Yes, so, is there collateral damage from us not having this updated in a timely basis? Are we in violation of some law or regulation, or have we somehow unwittingly painted ourselves into some weird corner where we're paying somebody more than what we're permitted to pay, or anything of that sort?
it hasn't been brought to me that we're under any violations.
Okay,
It was brought to me, my attention that these were not updated, and so the department heads that are impacted by this understand that, the increase must go before our special town meeting in October, and once that's approved and voted, it will be retroactive to this
Okay,
July,
okay,
so.
all right.
Yeah, so we're not in violation that way, everything is on hold until then it's retroactive
okay.
to July 1.
Ian, did you want to say something? I didn't know if I caught.
No, I was just, why was, the information technology director under CC under part-time? Was that just a total mistake?
No,
No.
we used to have a part-time, we shared it, with
Oh,
another
okay.
town. It was a
Right.
failed experiment, but,
guess so.
yeah.
Okay.
So in addition to this, since we're talking about updating this, I just want to make sure we're not missing anything, because, we had amendments on the floor in October, and I think we had amendments on the floor in the recent town meeting in May. And I know that we had additional input throughout the last year that addressed this as well. So there's actually, if this is, I don't know when the last time it was updated was, but if October 4th, this article is the current one, there might be some wage and personnel meetings that we might have to go through as well to make sure that they make it on to whatever the newest iteration is. We also, when we're doing our warrant, we were carving some out, we saw redundancies, and we were moving things around, if memory serves. So, I mean, we've gone through a couple of, that's a good example, but there were a couple of different iterations. So we might have to do a little bit of work on this.
There will be, and I can assure you, so the, library director, which had an article on it to bring that salary from 70 up to 90, so that was updated, okay? I do have that, so that was updated, and the conservation agent, was updated from 70 to 89. But town meeting did not vote to allow did not approve the conservation agent being elevated to full-time, but it did approve the salary increase. So that line there, which is line E and line F, those two were indeed updated, okay, in the bylaw. So the next one you'll get, those two will be updated and is corrected through the October special town meeting. And those were the only two that were updated, but then the rest of them got right by us with the
Yeah.
figures, so.
No, it's fine, I just think that after October, you had these ones. You also had the warrant that we were preparing for May's, meeting, so all of those meetings, we need to look at those. Look at the warrant conversations during the selectmen meeting in which we moved some stuff around.
Yes.
And then the actual May town meeting, we had more, if memory serves, we had more amendments or catches
Yes.
that we needed to figure out, so.
So-
You did a good job up to this point, I just think that there's a little bit more. I just don't wanna lose out on some of those selectmen meetings that had some changes.
Oh,
on
yeah,
them.
no, like I said, we'll update them and we will schedule more wage and personnel to get all of this taken care of by the time we get to October, well before October special time meeting, so we have all of this updated.
Fantastic, all right, thank you. Is there any other business? All right,
And we don't have to, it's just sort of like a question. Given the current, environment of nobody can fill any of the jobs they've got, I don't know if we've been having trouble filling positions, but, can we just do a sanity check that for instance, I could go work at Chick-fil-A for $18 an hour. And I'm just looking at some of these positions, and it just, again, I don't want to pay more than we have to, but on the other hand, if it's going to be a prohibition against us getting somebody decent to do the job or anybody at all, I just think if we're going to go through, let's,
I don't disagree with that, that's something I wanted to do last year, but we always seemed to be really, really busy, so we never got around to it. What I'd like to do is go through this, make sure it's up to date first, because that's already gonna be a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then go through the process of figuring out what's competitive or not, because I don't wanna give you so much work that it stretches everybody thin.
Yeah.
And then we end up not getting anything done, because we still have to prep for
so will
everything
you
else.
just kind of pend that as a
Absolutely.
conversation? Okay,
Yep.
great.
Well,
Yep.
so actually, I don't know if you remember, because it was probably almost a year ago, I did get a grant from Community Compact to conduct a study.
Yep.
The problem is I can't get anybody to give me a proposal.
Yeah.
I have been working to get people, I finally get the Collins Center who responded back to me. I'm still waiting for the proposal.
Yeah.
And another company who responded back and waiting for a proposal. So it's taken me almost a year to even get people to respond to get me proposals. I got two grants. One was for the Economic Development Manual, one was for the classification study. And again, it took forever to get, I finally got somebody for the Economic Development Manual,
Yeah,
which is on its
yeah,
way.
yeah.
And finally getting people, but it seems like we are getting now all of these surveys from all these other towns doing the same thing, and that's probably why we haven't gotten a proposal yet, because they're busy doing all the other towns.
Right.
So that is in the works, because I have the grant for it, so it will be done. I'm just waiting for somebody to give me the proposal to do the work.
Oh, that's great, though.
That's awesome.
Appreciate the update.
Yeah, so I guess we're in the same boat as everybody else, we're just waiting, it's been out there, and we're just waiting for the proposal and saying, okay, great, please start this work.
Great, okay. Sounds good. All right, any other business? No? All right, accept a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? All right, we adjourned.